All right. Title of this video is Store Personnel Coerced into Harassing Targeted Individuals. Let me start out by asking a question. How can perps or perpetrators gain the obedience and submit to store personnel to be completely rude to targeted individuals? How can that be? Now, perps do in fact recruit store personnel to be rude to targeted individuals. This happens at lots of other places too, not just stores. A place the target works, where they live, where they work out, or on public transit. But in this monologue, we're going to highlight stores, retail establishments in particular, where the perping of targeted individuals takes place. I'm not talking about one rude incidence of behavior at one particular store. You could chalk it up to just being a full moon, or maybe it was rainy, or a Monday. What I'm talking about is rude behavior thrown towards targeted individuals day in and day out. Now, how can that be? It ranges from small boutiques to convenience stores, gas stations, large corporations, and supermarkets. It happens on a constant and consistent basis. One thing to keep in mind is that the harassment of TIs is very subtle. If you're not a TI being perped on or a bystander, you would not notice. This would be invisible to you. Please keep this in mind during the next section. Perps follow targeted individuals around TIs 24/7, and if they know a TI is headed to the gym, store, or other business, many times, often than not, the perps are there in advance, waiting to harass the TI. If the TI arrives by vehicle, they step out in front of the target as they are trying to park or enter the store. The TI will say, "Excuse me," and smile, but the perp will coldly ignore them. And if the TI reaches or grabs for an item, somebody moves their shopping cart to intentionally cut them off. Once again, when the target says, "Excuse me," and smiles, the perp ignores them. Perps usually do not want to make eye contact. They keep a poker face because they are on a mission. Perps don't want to be invited into conversations. That's why they ignore them. It's a complete mind game to keep the target in a constant negative environment. Just as a TI arrives at the end of the aisle, boom, someone is there to block their way. Once again, the TI says, "Excuse me," and the perp ignores them every single time. Now, once again, these things do occasionally happen in real life, but they happen to targeted individuals every time they go out to the store. The target heads down for a case of soda pop, which they purchase every time at the same establishment. But bam! Somebody blocks their path just as they reach for the soda. It happens every time the person goes to the store. It doesn't only happen once. The target is being sensitized. This is a complete PSYOP, spelled PSYOP, or short for psychological operation, psychiatric operation. How can this be? Who is doing this? Where are all these people coming from? Not everybody in congregation would be doing it, but largely, I suspect it's InfraGard, the FBI's large network of civilian spies. This type of tactic is very subtle. It happens in churches, gyms, grocery stores, and music festivals alike. However, that being said, you wouldn't notice, because you are not the target being harassed. Say it isn't so, but it is so. As a side note, I don't think this is all new either. I think it started decades before the internet. Remember, you would not notice this behavior unless you were the target being sensitized. This is intentionally very subtle. It is a PSYOP, and no one should expect any amount of fuckery and rudeness every time they go out of their house to the store. But not every day, in every state, in every country. Sometimes a mob of people come into a store all at once and get in front of the TI. They take all day paying or lollygagging with the cashier, or slowly choosing lotto tickets. This isn't far-fetched. It happens every single time I go to the store. I can attest to this. If a TI darts unexpectedly in front of the perps who mob and try to stall him, he will get good service, which is to be expected. It may take 2 or 3 times to visit a new store before the TI expects harassment. This is an important topic because harassment at stores is often the most commonly reported harassment tactic used against TIs besides car mobbing. Google the term FBI floating box, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. After all, stores are an important place TIs must often visit. And in one place TIs go to receive subtle doses of harassment. Not all TIs, though, because the harassment protocol is different for everybody. But in my case, I get mobbed and harassed and followed into every store or business I enter. As a targeted individual, after being in such a negative environment, a TI can read the contempt on the store clerks' faces. Now how can the perps initiate that kind of hatred? To begin with, the perp received a type of manipulative training to hypnotize or slander the target, getting them to go along with it. Do they drug them? Do they use keywords? I don't know, but I want to know. Maybe perps approach and threaten the store personnel, usually when navigating and attempting to speak to other patrons or store personnel. It seems as if they have been scripted or coached. Google or YouTube the term, quote-unquote, listen to a stranger. It's a TV segment about a private investigator or a guy with a badge coercing normal people in public to do outlandish things. So it may be that, to these weak, easily influenced people, that the badge is used as a hypnotic tool. One could only speculate. Google those terms to see a woman who stole a baby, all because she thought she was doing the right thing. I think it's agents. Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, CIA, FBI, passing out an assorted photos file with all types of professional slander backed by a professional liar. God only knows. Whatever slander that is spread, it's tailor-made to each individual being coerced into the harassment. I've talked about this before. Maybe they subtly threaten the job of the merchant. Maybe blackmail? Who knows? It still baffles me how perps can know so much about anyone they approach. And the answer is yes. They know it all. The DHS and the NSA databases, or supercomputers in Utah, have stored every text, every call, every nude photo of you. They got it all. This thing is really big, and it's backed by a huge army and network of liars. However, there are three kinds of people involved. Number one, the targeted individual. Number two, the person telling lies, the perp. And number three, the merchant. I'm going to go over that again. There are three types of people in this scenario. Number one, the targeted individual. Number two, the perp telling lies about the target. And number three, the merchant. Something to remember, that targeted individuals are on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week surveillance campaign and are being watched and harassed constantly. So it would be extremely difficult to get said merchants and store personnel to wise up to them. But once again, if the perps know you're onto them, they will change their approach with you. You can count on that. The perps are immoral and deceptive and illicit, but they are not stupid. But also, remember, if you spill the beans, you could also be put on a watch list and stalked yourself. Thank you for your time.